Bam Wham Slam is the May dump finally happening for Bitcoin right here, right now. Welcome to Debate Crypto. Question everything, trust nothing. Welcome, everybody. Everybody knows today on Thursdays and Mondays we do around the charts, and today we're talking about Bitcoin. First up, we got Magic Internet Money. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh, I'm just living the dream out here in Kansas, man, every week.
That's good to hear, dude. Good to hear. Up next, we got Bill Noble in the house. What's up, dude?
Hi, man. Thanks for having me.
Great to always have you on, man. I love all your phrases, and you got always some really good insight on a lot of different things that are happening. And last but not least, we got Blood. What's going on, Crypto Blood?
Hey, living a nightmare in the Motor City, baby.
That's it, guys. From now on, that's the rule. Everybody that comes on the show has to have a phrase. They have to have a catchphrase of some kind to introduce themselves. I love it. Guys, smash those likes if you haven't smashed the likes just yet. Share out the live if you haven't shared it. But let's get excited. All these guys' information down in the description. Make sure you guys go follow them. Make sure you guys go subscribe and show them some love on YouTube, on Twitter. We all really appreciate it. Content creators. All we want is some likes and subs. That's all we want. And it's free. So it doesn't cost you a thing. So, guys, I've gathered you guys here today because Bitcoin can't break 27K, right? And things are going sideways. CPI came back pretty positive. Even though it's Fugazi, it came back positive. Bitcoin is going sideways. Banks still having problems. JP Morgan continues to talk about banning the shorting of bank stocks, which is a problem. So, I'm just going to cut right into it. Let's look at, before I even cut into it, actually, I'm sorry. I always forget to do this part, and then Nick gets on my ass about it. Market Overwatch. The Market Overwatch. Let me share what's going on over here with the markets. All right. We've got a quick little refresh. Pep is still trending, but it ain't trending in the way anybody likes it, let me tell you. There's nothing but down. But outside of that, we got Bitcoin down almost 3% today. Ethereum as well, almost 4%. Everything's pretty much in the red, about 5% or lower, give or take here in the top 10. So it's not looking too good. Been a slow bleed. Like I said, Bitcoin just can't seem to hold that 27, and we're going back below. So, guys, the time has come for me to find my screen and get back on schedule here. First question I got, right, for Magic Internet Money. What's going on, man? What's going on, right? We've got, like I said, Bitcoin keeps struggling at 27,500. Couldn't keep holding it. Has been breaking down. Now that we kind of are losing 27,000, where are we headed? What's the next step here for Bitcoin?
I will actually show my chart for this. It's pretty easy. I've done a really good job here lately of cleaning them up so that they're nice and clean, not many lines on them, just for you guys, because I know you guys like the simplicity of things. Right. That's always the number one feedback I get. Can you dumb it down? And we definitely can. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And I always turn my camera off for this because for some reason it just shares that much better. So where you're at right now are two really important averages. These are, also known as pivots, but that's all they are, is the average of whatever session you're looking at. So you have a yearly average from, 2022 right here at 26,724. And, the 60-day is something that I do myself, largely inspired by someone, Bob Lucas. He does 60-day cycles on Bitcoin. And so it is untapped, meaning that we've not returned to the average of the last 60 days, which is 26,610. So for me, this was always kind of the area we'd be looking for. In strong trending markets, you won't return to these averages. It'll continue to trend. But as you're getting at what they call a mean reversion here from resistance, you are looking at an area that needs to hold. If lost, you can see that I have one line here at 24.7. This was a really big area we talked about for weeks on end, actually, before breaking out. Because if you go out to a weekly chart, this was the area that was kind of holding us down in our prior local range. So, if we zoom in a little bit, you can see why, 1 test, 2 test, 3, 4, and then finally getting above on our breakout. if you return to it, it's not just the, the breaker level that you want to see there. You've also got your quarterly average here. So now we're going from the 60-day to the 90-day essentially. And the quarterly is a much more accepted, time frame for most people and traders. But your quarterly reversion would be 24/7. It would also be a market structure key level. If you were just to put it back up real quick here, you can see that that's also going to be a key area to hold. So if we lose, this 27K area, we'll just use a nice round number. This is likely the next scenario and next stop. Now, beneath you, you can see that you have not back tested your monthly here, coming in right around, actually, it's right here about 23K. So that would be, the next level after that. And there is the NPOC that's coming in there from Q1 as well. So you have a naked point of control there. And then also, I believe March is naked just beneath it at like 22.8. So, yeah, if you break 26.7, 26.6, we want to call it that, you got 24/7 and then 23K next. Those will be the two big areas. If you break through 24/7, I don't really think it necessarily stops at 23K. I think that we're much more in line with a 20K, Bitcoin at that point. But, those are things that while we're where we are on the chart, it's tough to say. If you were watching this from just an overall perspective of, what's going to happen in the short term, you'd be best off just using local timeframes and saying, okay, can I reclaim some of these key lows that were set in, like right here, you've got your previous week low coming all the way in up here at 27,659, which is, oh man, a good chunk of price away. So if you were to look at it this way, one would say, I need to recover this local low right here just from a local time session, right? Not even using anything else. I would say this area on the chart gets recovered. It's your last rejection point. We can then start looking up and potentially, looking at this as a much larger range again and cycling higher. So for me, I've just been trading this as day trades. Like I just took a weekly trade here, basically just taking it from the weekly low on the bounce, reacceptance, then trying to trade it back to the top of the range, get out of the trade. And I'm already in a long position here again, even though I'm not in love with the low, but I am trying to take a day trade scalp out of it. So I'm going to treat this as support until it isn't. To be upfront with you, I get excited if we reclaim the weekly point of control right here at 27.6, but also that previous week low at 27.659. It's going to be a key area to get back above. If you do that and you move here, we can start talking about taking some of the liquidity to the upside, and that maybe this was, just another bounce at support. But until that happens, I'm going to trade it locally and then let the high time frames sort themselves out. My long-term positions from 16.6 are still open. So that hasn't changed. It's just, really kind of, I guess what you have to do is you have to really compartmentalize what you're doing on the high time frame versus, this is like a low and medium time frame play, basically. So for me, this week, I'm looking for longs here until they're no longer good. If this breaks down, 24/7 is the next opportunity for me. Sorry for the winded answer, but
no, dude, that's a great answer. It gives all the spots where we're exactly where we're headed, and maybe we do head down those levels. Right, we're in May, right? The whole sell in May, walk away. Maybe that's good advice. Right? Maybe that is where we're headed, and people need to take care of those situations ahead of time, because in the previous times we've seen this. Every time the summer comes around, you get this summer lullaby. You get this kind of crash and then sideways crab walk. That we kind of already been in a crab walk for a bit, so now maybe the crash is coming, and people just get bored, and then they don't start reigniting back in until something exciting happens. So with that, right, I'm going to switch on over to Blood. Blood, my question for you is, right, the CPI numbers, they came in pretty positive, I guess you would say, right, with being lower than expected, even though they're still raising interest rates. Yet Bitcoin seems to still keep struggling here, even though we've seen in the past Bitcoin kind of have a little bit of, when it's seeing some problems in the banking system, seeing problems in the traditional, it's been kind of having a little bit of a move. So what do you believe, before you even show me your chart, what do you believe is keeping Bitcoin down right now?
There's a number of reasons. CPI and PPI probably aren't at the top of the list. Of course, they have some impact, but I gotta jump to the chart before I forget really
Go ahead,
quickly, and I'll get into the details because it's just so funny and amazing that Magic has the same levels that I have that I'm watching, but for entirely different reasons. The markets are just crazy, man. I love it. But look at this. I have a red box here. That is my zone for a channel that we've been in and out of for quite some time, going back all the way to March 17th of this year. Now, below that channel, I have a yellow line at 26,500. That is the same area that Magic has as a area of support. Okay, that is an area of support for me as well. It's a confluence. There are two technical reasons, you know, that are lining up in that area that makes it a very strong area of support. However, I think we go down to that green line, which is a trend line I have, ironically enough, lines up almost where Magic is talking about at 24,700. So that's where I think we're going. I think we're gonna break this support area,
and you're hoping that we hold that 24.
Yeah, I hope we hold. We should for a local low. I think we'll bounce off that green line, but that's it's just crazy. I just wanted to share that really quickly. But as far as the markets, man, it's so complex. It's so many layers to the onion. But at the end of the day, my overall macro thesis on Bitcoin and the crypto markets is that it is a pretty much an indication of U.S. liquidity conditions. Okay. And what are U.S. liquidity conditions? Those are they comprise of three components. It's the Fed's balance sheet, it's the Fed's repo rate or repo markets, and it's also the you can call it the U.S. Treasury account. They call it the general account. It's those three things that comprise the U.S. liquidity conditions. And that is what you need to look at. So if liquidity is contracting, which it is in this instance, I think we head lower with Bitcoin in the short run, man. I'm sorry. I just think we end up ultimately heading lower, possibly to 12.6. That's a target that I have still in mind. I'm hoping 12, that we hold that. Yeah, 12,600.
Man, and what's causing us to go down there? The liquidity crunch?
Lack of liquidity in the United States. You have a lot of and it ties into the banking system, right? You know, a lot of flight from smaller local regional banks into the majors. That is a tighten that causes liquidity issues. So I think people need to look at that as an indication. Again, I'm not taking credit for full credit for this thesis. It really comes out of like Arthur Hayes's kind of predictions or thesis on around tracking Bitcoin and what it should be tracked against. And that ultimately is what I look at as well. So,
dude, I mean, it's possible, right? There are tons of things happening with the liquidity, right? There's tons of problems happening with more banks collapsing. We just saw PacWest, I think it was today or yesterday, they lost 9% last week. And then
so when banks contract dollar lending in mass to repair their balance sheets, it removes dollar credit globally, which then in turn pushes the price of dollars up and lowers its supply. So dollar gets stronger, risk on assets get weaker. It just is what it is, guys. Crypto blood right there for you, man.
Yeah, it just is what it is, right? I just want to give a quick shout out to all the DCA members out there that are traveling right now out to Ohio for the 3-day survival boot camp. I know we've been talking about this but Nick is going to be out there. Keeper's going to be out there waiting for everybody to arrive, setting up a tent and setting up a whole, you know, we're going to have a bonfire. There's going to be drinks. There's going to be food. It's going to be all kinds of stuff. It's going to be a big party. It's going to be fun. But Bill, I'm going to switch it over to you. And I have a little bit of a different question when it comes to you. And by the way, guys, smash those likes. Go follow these guys right here. If you're not following them or wherever I'm pointing at. This way, go and follow them. Their links are down below. Smash those likes. So my question for you, Bill, is a little different. A big YouTube channel called Invest Answers, which I've seen for a long time, right? He came out saying that for June 2024, not 2012. So we're not going back in time here. In 2024 of June, you know, he expects Bitcoin to be hitting near all-time highs because of this cycle of 415 days being the time that you spend from Bitcoin's all-time high to its all-time low and starts to recover. And he says that, you know, the next 414 days, that should lead for Bitcoin to be hitting a new all-time high, which also kind of is right after the Bitcoin halving event, right? But we normally don't see such a large spike to an all-time high right near the halving event. So my question to you is, are you seeing anything in the charts whether it's through Chat GPT, whether it's in the moon cycles, or is there anything that you could find that could also back up this idea of his outside of the 415-day cycle?
All right, it's a good question. So when I look at the fact that there's $17 trillion in the banking system, that's the total U.S. deposits. You know, the Fed cannot print 17 trillion if you had a black swan or a gray swan event, right? These banking crises, they result in the, securities, the value of risk assets gets re-auctioned, right? Meaning you have to reprice the entire system. So if that happens, Bitcoin can probably make a move well before any halvening. Second point, you have to remember, to legacy investors, Bitcoin is an altcoin. For us, Bitcoin is like your dad's crypto. Okay. In legacy, Bitcoin is like the fast moving alternative to a broken system. Now, I just did ChatGPT, 415 is close to a Fibonacci number of 418. Fibonacci numbers are frequently used in cycles. So, that work is valid. Question is, what price are you at in 415, at that point? Now, some of the work that I did, sparing you like the math, I thought if there was a super cycle, the super cycle would start when you would extend. I think it's the golden pocket for some guys. I came up with it using a different method, but you would extend like 200-300% from 47K, resulting in six-figure Bitcoin or higher. And that could be by the end of this year. I would think most certainly by June. So what I'm trying to say is, there is plenty of work, right, on cycles, on Fibonacci work that would suggest, along with common sense, as to how this whole banking crisis and geopolitical situation, the end game, that $1 in Bitcoin is better than $1 in the bank. And if that happens, if you have everybody in the United States hitting the green button at the same time, okay, you have the possibility for a major run-up. Now, I've got other things. There's an eclipse in November, which no doubt is going to bring down legacy. And I think that's going to be the propellant for Bitcoin.
Dude, I agree. Oh, go ahead. You have more? Go ahead.
No, it's the decoupling.
Yeah. Do you think the decoupling is going to happen on November?
Yeah, I think by the fall, people will have realized that they got to own Bitcoin. Now, I'm totally down with what Blood is saying for, say, like May and June, right? In other words, if you have people, if they can't short bank stocks, big players have to short something. Shorting S&P isn't going to work because the AI revolution is propping up stocks because of the perceived increase in productivity. So if they can't short the bank stocks, they can't short S&P, they got to get short something. And that's why crypto seems to just like slump, right?
I want to just chime in on Bill's analysis. I'm with him on a November. It's just not this November. It's next November. Elections, we tend to see assets rise, risk-on assets rise. They got to fix, make it look good for the incumbent. And so I think stock markets rally next year, tail end of next year, and also cryptos. So I personally, we can't really see the future. There are a lot of variables and events that could happen that could be bullish or bearish for cryptos. But with all things being equal, I see us kind of going lower, bleeding out until next year, with ups and downs. But overall trend, I think, is lower until we get into near the election time. So we'll see.
Yeah, man, I still tend to believe, like Bill was saying about the super cycle. I think there's enough catalysts here that if there's ever going to be a super cycle for Bitcoin, the time is now, right? That we're seeing the banking system collapse. We're seeing the problems happening with the traditional system, right? We have an election year, like you mentioned, Blood, coming up next year as well. I think now's the time for there to be a super cycle. If the super cycle doesn't happen within the next, this next cycle coming up, I don't think there's ever going to be a super cycle. And we can put that myth to rest, because I don't think there's ever going to be more catalysts than what we're seeing right now for people to realize, hey, dollar's in trouble. I need to put my money somewhere, right? We had Michael Saylor talking on the what's his name? Patrick
Pat
Bet
Bet.
David
Yeah.
podcast just a few days ago up here in Fort Lauderdale, talking about exactly that, about how if you keep your money in a weak currency, you're bound to lose your money. It's only a matter of time, right? Whether it's 90 years or it's 10 years, you're
But
gonna
yeah,
lose
I
your
want to
money
say
somewhere.
something about Patrick, that Patrick Bet podcast, because he's right, but he's not telling the whole picture. Yes, the dollar has lost 99% of its value over 100 years or whatever everyone likes to tout. But with inflation, your wages have gone up and other things have gone up. You know what I'm saying? So it is not just a 99% loss of value. It's not just that straight. So
Yeah,
people are a little
I understand.
hyperbolic
Yeah,
when they make those comments without putting it in context.
for sure. I completely agree. But at the same time, wages haven't kept up with inflation. Wages kept up. The prices of things have just been
It hasn't kept up,
skyrocketing.
but it hasn't been stagnant either. It's not like where it was 100 years ago. Is basically what I'm
For
saying.
sure, but
Yeah.
I remember back in the 90s, you go to the shopping center with $20, you can fill up the shopping cart, right? Now you go to the market with $20 and you're getting like one, maybe two items at best, which shows how far the devaluing of the dollar and inflation has happened with everything that's going around. But I get what you're saying. You're adding context.
If you guys want a super cycle, you just got to vote for Robert F. Kennedy in the next preliminary, or Ron DeSantis. Those are your Bitcoin bulls right there. You guys want to get someone in the White House that likes Bitcoin and crypto, and you guys want that super cycle. That's it right there. That's what you need,
dude.
So that means Trump is going to get in because the powers that be don't like
Trump.
Bitcoin.
He doesn't like Bitcoin. I thought he called it a scam.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. I'm saying they're going to let him get in because he doesn't like Bitcoin.
They don't
I think Trump is going to go pro Bitcoin. I think Trump is going to go pro Bitcoin.
I think he's going to pivot.
He's going to have to pivot. He's going to
he said in that CNN thing last night that he just hoped that we should just default on the debt now because we're going to have to eventually. He literally told that to the lady, like to her face.
Damn.
I didn't see that one, but damn, that's savage. I mean,
that is savage.
Straight
that's
savage.
what I'm talking about.
I mean, dude, I think he's gonna go pro Bitcoin. I think he's gonna take back his stance of that, how he was against Bitcoin before. Ben BitBoy was on with Donald Trump Jr. on his podcast. They talked about it. They talked about crypto. So I think he's gonna take a pro Bitcoin stance. It's the only thing that you can tell people, like Michael Saylor says, right? Bitcoin is hope. As to an extent, that's somewhat true, right? You tell people, hey, here's something you can put your money in the long term, you'll kind of be okay. Versus, hey, just keep holding on to dollars and banks shutting down and you're not being able to withdraw your money. It's a huge problem.
But I hear people say Trump is pro Bitcoin because he loves NFTs. I see a couple comments in there. Let's differentiate. NFTs are not Bitcoin. Okay. So don't think they're one and the same. They're not.
I say
he loves all that NFT money.
Yeah, he loves money. NFT money. He saw an opportunity to get paid, and he did.
Yeah, for sure.
Trump's going to use Bitcoin as a way to embarrass the current administration or whoever he's running against.
Right.
In other words,
good.
It's not that the dollar's, lost 99% of its value. It's that I think for the first time in a very long time, maybe since the War of 1812, people are actually worried about the integrity of the currency because they see all this stuff with, the Chinese yuan trying to undermine us, and people are asking themselves, what is the value of this paper? And of course, any good politician, right, or the news media, if they want to get people's attention, they create fear. So Bitcoin and CBDCs, believe it or not, may be at the core of what goes on in the 2024 election. People saying no to CBDCs, even though the tech stack is not implementable at any time. And then, the biggest fear of the current administration is six-figure Bitcoin, because that is the entire world and the United States going, we're done with you.
Great point.
100%. Magic, you have something to say?
I was just going to say, if you really want Trump or whoever to, back Bitcoin, just let the left keep going at it. If the left don't like it, the right will pick it up. They'll just say, hey.
And that's exactly
and that's why I think he's pivot. That's why I think he's going to pivot.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen a lot of Republicans coming out pro Bitcoin. There's enough of it already, enough chatter already happening in Congress pro Bitcoin. It fits perfect to his narrative, right? He's the outsider coming in, right? That they're against him.
But
He's
I read
bringing
an
the
article.
outside currency in as well.
I read an article that Emmer is his anti CBDC bill has a lot of support by the left, but they're scared to come out and admit it. I'm like, what has the Democrat Party come to?
Dude, it's wild what it's come to. That
crazy,
even if it's
man.
good for the country, they will not support it just because it's from the other side. It's ridiculous. So it's like, are you working for the better of the government, for the better of the people? Are you really representing the people, or just representing self-interest, right? I mean, back to the point of RFK, I think he's a wild candidate. I think he's going to bring up a lot of good discussions. But I don't think,
kind of like him
he's gonna
so
win.
far.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he said people need a way out. I mean, the guy is just like being honest. It's like people need a way out in case the legacy system goes sideways. You know, the other thing
he's a Democrat and he sounds like a Republican. That's how crazy things are.
No, he just, you know what it is? The Democrats have gotten so extreme. He's just a down the middle, moderate Democrat.
Exactly.
And he sounds like a Republican because the Democrats are
right. The left has become the left has become the right. Like they're so dug in on some of the stuff they're doing. Now, naturally, in the 2024 election, people aren't taking into account that there could be 4 candidates. You know, this has happened before in U.S. history. You could have RFK, the current president, right, a former president, and DeSantis. You have 4 guys running.
That'd be wild.
That opens up a possibility of either governmental chaos or somebody with an extreme viewpoint getting in the White House. You know what I'm saying? Like, people don't take political risk into account.
They'll change the rules after that happens again, because then they do that before. That's why they have the rules about, you know, anybody that can actually come on and go to a debate once the prelims are over, you know, they have to have a certain polling ratio to even get up on that stand. They made that because of who was that dude in the 90s that's they claim
Ross Perot.
There you go, Perot. They're basically
big
the Ross
sucking
Perot.
sound.
Yeah, it'd be a similar situation to that. They'll change the rules after that if they don't get the candidate they want in. You know how it is.
Always change the rules to your favor, right?
Yeah, man.
So guys, smash those likes if you like what you're hearing. Go follow these guys. Their links are down below in the description. Up next, right? The next panel of questions here is going to be open forum questions. So the same question goes for all 3 of you guys. I want to get your thoughts on it. You can agree with everyone else. You can just say, yeah, I agree. Or, you can give a more detailed answer. So the question is, what is Bitcoin really missing for it to be pushed up right now? Will the debt ceiling being raised pump Bitcoin? Why don't we start with you, Bill?
Okay, so the debt ceiling, according to Powell, you don't want to think about a world where the U.S. government can't pay its bills, right? I would imagine if the U.S. government can't pay its bills, if Bitcoin didn't rally, it would be one of those things where if there's a bullish idea and it doesn't create a rally, my comment is for May and June, beware the failed rally. Beware. So that should create a Bitcoin positive sentiment. But if it doesn't create a Bitcoin rally, that's the end. Now, my guess is, based on some of these cycles, like there's an every 12-year cycle, there's the lunar eclipse that just happened. I mean, if you have a negative fundamental event like that, then blood could be right, that you could have a down move that is shocking because, risk off is risk off. If they got to sell everything, then that means they got to sell everything, even if it makes no sense. So, the debt ceiling debate, it's not whether they do it or not, because obviously a default is a disaster, but it's what they look like in the process. If they make it into a clown show, we're going to lose a lot of credibility. That would help Bitcoin, but a default, oh man, that's fugly.
Yeah, that's gonna definitely be disastrous.
That's bad for everything.
Agreed. Magic, what do you think about the debt ceiling? If it raises, will it pump Bitcoin? I mean, it's only a matter of time.
I think all markets are going to react positively to that news. They're going to look at it as, hey, crisis averted yet again at the last second, right? But I think they're projecting we should be at like 50 trillion here in like the next 7 years, 6 years. I think it was the projection like months ago that we heard. I want to say it was even Janet Yellen that said it, and it was just like nobody cares about this woman just telling us that we're going to cut 50 trillion in debt in like the
No
next
big deal, right?
7 years. Nobody cares, right? It's the projection. So all risk on assets should rise if that's the case. So the more they move the debt ceiling out and the more money they're going to print, well, everything else should go with it in theory, right? Unless there's some kind of a structural breakdown in terms of like what the dollar is, like, you know, we've all kind of talked about that. But, you know, it's tough because you look at what's going on in traditional markets and they're not lowering rates anytime soon. You know, they're going to keep it where it is. Well, they're going to keep it where it is. And so they're doing exactly what they said they were going to do for once. They said, hey, we're going to get to this terminal point within a quarter, 0.5%, it kind of just depends. And then we're going to keep it there for a year, you know? So it really all depends. Even though we have good CPI numbers and PPI numbers coming out, that's right in line with what they want. They see no reason to lower it yet, you know, lower rates, and they have no reason to deviate from their plan. So I don't really see prices breaking into a new bull market, you know, where it's like all-time highs until that whole scenario gets resolved and they start pivoting back down. And then it becomes the issue of if they pivot, generally the markets don't bottom until after the pivot occurs, right? Until they reach the terminal rate and then they come back down. That's where you're going to run into an issue, you know, where the markets sell off again. So is this all just priced in advance? They always say, you know, all news is priced in. You know, how smart are these markets? Are they already pricing it in that early? You know, are we getting that sell in May, walk away early type thing? So we'll see. But for me, if they raise the debt ceiling, it sucks for us because I doubt we're getting wage increases. But, you know, they're going to continue to print money. You're just going to have to find the strong asset. And I do believe over time, stronger assets do prevail, you know, things like Bitcoin. So when you look at the evolution of Bitcoin and adoption and like, how do we get to these super cycle numbers? It starts on the ground floor of countries that are already further along in panic than we are in terms of a financial system, like Ecuador. All these like little countries like, oh, these are dink and dunk countries that are using Bitcoin as a currency. Well, it makes sense because those are the countries where something like that has to take a foothold earlier and faster. And a country like the US or, you know, the UK, countries with really large systems in place, it's going to take a long time. You know, it's going to take a while, but over time, the system will slowly gravitate towards this. So it is a time game, but the more they push the debt ceiling up, the more, you know, the more beneficial it is for risk on assets, allegedly, because nobody wants to hold dollars at that point, you know?
Yeah.
So
that's what we're seeing, right? That's when the whole narrative of the great transfer of wealth, right? As one currency starts to go down because it's being inflated to death, right? Another one has to prevail at some point, and the early adopters are the ones that get rewarded.
It's financial Darwinism, man. That's all it is. It's just
Dude, perfect phrase. Yeah, you got to coin that one. Financial Darwinism. That's a good one. Guys, we got 100 people here watching. Let's get 100 likes, guys. The likes are low right now. Come on, we're dropping here. We're dropping great truths here right now. Smash those likes. Blood, give me some heat, man. What's going on? What do you think is with the cryptocurrency market? Will Bitcoin pump if the debt ceiling is raised?
If the debt ceiling is raised, will Bitcoin pump? It might pop off the news, but again, after the news, we have to return to the items that I just mentioned before, right? And to me, it goes back to U.S. liquidity, and I think that we are going to continue to see U.S. liquidity slow up and dry up, and that's just my overall overarching thesis in the short run. Now, of course, long term, I think Bitcoin is going to do well. It's going to be over 6 figures, all that great stuff. But I just don't see it in the next 12 to 14, 16 months. Just don't see it.
Yeah, man. We'll see, right? It's one of those things. We'll see. So I do hope it pumps. I do hope it moves. You know, if we do see a lower level, I mean, we're just gonna have to wait out and, like Magic likes to say, take it level by level or from box to box to see how low we go. I really hope we don't see 12K. That's gonna be.
What is Magic? What's your low on the downside? What's your target?
You know, it is very, very in line with what Crusader said, level to level. However, I don't have us making a new low necessarily on Bitcoin. I do think altcoins, I've been on record as saying I think they're going to make new lows for sure. I shouldn't say for sure, but I think altcoins are. I think a lot of money is going to flow out of those outside of the meme coins that pump and dump real hard, obviously. But I think a lot of that money in crypto will flow into Bitcoin. We will finally see that mass exodus. And I think a lot of that comes down to regulation when it does come. And I think altcoins are going to really kind of be the ones that get hurt the most in that. So I don't see Bitcoin necessarily making new. Now, if we do start making new lows, I think that there's probably some pretty bad things going on across the board. And in your case where you're talking about, 12.6, if we swing fail at like 13,880, like that'd be a level I'd watch. But realistically, I'd start actually looking for probably like 6K, maybe even lower over time. And I would think that we're probably not going to make new all-time highs for anywhere from 4 to 10 years at that point, unless there's a really swift recovery, which would be bad just from market structure alone. It doesn't have to play out that way. So for me, as of right now, I'm of the opinion that the low could be in and should be in if we're going to see a new bull market in the next few years. If we're not going to see that and we start seeing new lows, I think that you're going to see a terminal bear market where we actually go a full cycle on Bitcoin without making a new high, which nobody wants to hear. But
sweet baby Jesus, Lord, don't let that
baby Devontae Jesus. Bill, are you think we're going higher? If I heard you earlier in the episode, we're going to like 100,000 and by June.
Well, I did some math that had it like October, December, but
okay.
Of this year, right?
Okay.
Because I think what's going to happen is this thing in legacy to me looks so bad. Like, if you consider, like, say, the number of customers at a place like Schwab, a place like Fidelity that's got 40 million customers who can push the green button on Bitcoin. In other words, liquidity, Blood's talking about money in the system. Liquidity can also be termed as, whether or not you can buy and sell, right? Is there really enough Bitcoin if all the Fidelity customers hit the green button? I don't think I don't think there is.
Now, here's a curveball. Here's a curveball, though, because if we've heard rumors of them banning shorting banks, right?
Right.
Now, and we know what happens. Yeah. So when that happens, people can't hedge. So they go ahead and sell whatever they have to go to cash. So I can see a scenario where banning bank stocks is actually bad for Bitcoin, because the institutional traders will then have to sell their Bitcoin outright to gain some cash. I mean, that's probably secondary or tertiary, but stocks first, whatever stocks they have on book, and then maybe Bitcoin if they need to cover themselves. That's an angle to look at.
Right. Or just flat out hedging, right? I mean, you can't short the regional banks. Shorting big banks doesn't seem to work. Shorting S&P is not working because tech is trading well. So what fast moving instrument are you going to short sell or buy puts on that's going to go down the way regional banks go down? Well, there's only one thing that can go down in 20% increments like Pacific West. Unfortunately, that's crypto. Right.
I didn't think about that.
Right. Now,
yeah. I don't.
That said, hedges are something that little doggies pee on. Right. So if everybody sells Bitcoin as a hedge, if all these legacy guys go, okay, just sell Bitcoin.
There you go, Crusader, another one.
Right. I mean, these
That's
guys could all
right there.
They could all trap themselves in June, which is why sorry about the cheese, but that's why I'm like July and let it fly. Because you got a bunch of non-Bitcoin native people short out the wazoo, right, with depositor money flowing into Bitcoin. That's just like, see it. Right. So, that's part of my thesis. But yes, in the meantime, man, I don't like this. I don't like the May seasonals. I got this once every 12-year cycle, a lot of geopolitical events, a lot of bubbles, I was scared of October. I'm actually getting more scared of May and June. I'm calling it the gray swan. So I'm with you, Blood. It's like, you want to mess around with this? Like, maybe you can buy the dip at 24 or 23 for a trading play. And I'm telling you right now, man, if that doesn't hold, I'm okay with preserving capital here. For all my bullish hyperbole, I'm cool with it.
Right. I was going to say anything. So we're talking about 23, about 22,810. It's a pretty important little area. Was a number we talked about a while back. If that's lost and not reclaimed on just a structure, you might as well just look for the yearly open, which is like at 16K, if you want my personal opinion. So when we're talking like ranges and how things are going to develop, you want to get bearish, it's below those levels. Now, just because that happens doesn't mean, it's going to have to go to that level. If it goes below the level, consolidates, I call it cultivating fear, people selling into someone with a larger bag. All they're doing is filling, and then once the reclaim happens, kind of like we did at 16.6 and 17.1, that's your cue to, I should be long because we're aiming for 25K type thing. You know, it's the same scenario. You're just playing the range all over again. But for me, I look at this as I trade the levels because there are so many moving parts. You know, there's a lot of what ifs, like Bill said. You know, where are people going to put their money when they need that fast moving asset? I don't know, but I do know what the chart's telling me. I know how to read it. I know how to trade it and hedge my risk either way. That's why I do what I do, because there's just too many variables for me to keep up on. You know, I got like the mind of a goldfish when it comes to that type of stuff. You know, it's fun to talk about, but you know, at the end of the day, it's like, we can't predict what these guys are going to do necessarily. You know, same with charts. You can't predict them, but you can certainly react accordingly and prepare. So that's why I take the angles that I do. So I never mean to scare anyone when I say things like, if it goes below this level, the odds are of it going to here are pretty high. It's just, it is what the chart says, you know, like,
yeah. Dude, so you bring up a really good point, right? You're talking about different variables, about maybe he's going down 16, that'd be the bearish level, right? And then upward momentum. So I'm going to ask the question, what could possibly push Bitcoin, right? Because a few weeks ago, everybody was talking about 40K, 45,000 for Bitcoin, right? That narrative has kind of slowed down very, very fast, right? Nobody's talking about 40K anymore. But what could push Bitcoin close, if not to all-time highs, right, by the next halving? What are we seeing here? What kind of level targets should you be looking at and say, hey, if we are crossing these targets, we get to these targets, you know, we're going to keep going to this other key target over here? Or hey, maybe this fundamental situation happens because we're talking about liquidity crunch, talking about banks collapsing, talking about some type of awakening of people realizing what's happening. If this happens, then that could propel Bitcoin towards, not saying it's going to hit a new all-time high, but you know, past this 30,000 resistance and, you know, closer to that all-time high.
John Connor says XRP settlement is going to ignite the next bull market.
That's what they wish for, man. They all
old Connor.
They all wish for that.
Poor old Connor. No, I think not only, but one big catalyst that could really ignite Bitcoin to the upside would be like, let's say Russia and China decide to settle in Bitcoin, or a mixture, a basket of whatever currency.
That's interesting, because there's a lot of talks about mining. They're doing a lot of different things over there, trying to create their own like commodity-based currency, and Bitcoin's been thrown around a lot. China's backing Bitcoin now, but go ahead.
That'll do it, man. That'll help.
I was gonna say the dollar. If the dollar continues down, that's the key. You know.
Oh yeah, if it's holding the floor right now at 101, right? So if we break that, that could possibly be.
That's my next chart build for today for my channel. Actually, is I'm going to go over the DXY, and that's some really important levels, man. Like these levels right here, I'll show you on a monthly basis is what you're looking at. These are some levels we had mapped out. Essentially, what you're looking at are, again, kind of like breaker levels, and then you have your 12-month chart and your highs here. So when you're looking at this zone, you can see straight away we've not closed below. Where's my magnet at? There we go, here. And you've not closed below right here. So you've not closed any monthly candles below these two breakers. That's why the box is there, right? So this is what we were looking for. Now what you're looking at is 102.21. And the reason being is this is a 12-month range essentially. And you can see that if it found acceptance, let me get rid of this fib channel for you. These are the levels to play off of going forward. And essentially this was one giant range right here. You know, we'll get rid of the 75 and 25%. The reason I wanted those up was because they become immediate targets just in terms of how you should be looking at things if you're like playing at level to level. But this is your range. And you can see that you messed around in here for quite some time before exiting. Boom, boom, boom. Now you're finding your way back in. However, you've got these local lows from both quarterly and monthly that if lost, that's your trigger to see 96.5. And risk on assets will move. But you start reclaiming 102.21 on the back test of this and a swing fill of these levels. I don't see any reason why you won't see 103.65, 103.82. And then over time, you have this right here. This was another key area. You've not closed a candle above this on the high time frame right here at the 6-month level. So, level to level, of course, but it all starts with 102.21, living above this. And then you'll see the 2016 and 17 highs right here that have been really instrumental in terms of how we've been trading. Then you've got, here, but you've left a lot of averages that traditionally get tapped. to the upside. So when you see that, it means one of two things, which it kind of sucks to put it this way because everyone's gonna say, well, it can go up or down. If you see a reversal, these become targets because they will fill in, over time because they're the averages of prior sessions. That's all it is. Mean reversion. It doesn't mean full on reversal. It just means going to get a little bit of a pump. However, if you don't, it generally means when you don't tap them in the next coming session like you're supposed to, that the trend is really strong in the opposite direction. Price is so weak, it doesn't even return to the average of that session, right? So that's what you're looking at. You're looking at that inflection point on the DXY, and it's really beat down into this region. So if 102.21 is reclaimed, you target up here to the prior local highs. Use that as kind of like a barometer. If we're above that, we naturally usually go to 105. And then we have our targets up here. So that's what you could be looking for on something like the DXY. So it really does all hinge on 101.64 and 101.297 in terms of like a monthly closure. Once you get that, if we're going to base off of this, it's happening already. You've already swept the local low by just a hair right here back in April. So you have a swing fail. Now you just need to see basically a recovery of some support, and this thing can be off and running. And if that's the case, we'll see that mean reversion on Bitcoin, and it's not a good look at that time. But for me, my overall targets for the DXY, this goes back to the hopium from the summer, Bill, where we said, could it be a local top for the DXY? And it ended up being that way. It was, I believe, where did we put that? Right here. On a technical basis, the target of this is re-entry of this range and back to the B leg over time. The problem is you have to realize that this pattern that we were looking at has played out over the course of almost 2 decades. So it could take time to do that, meaning that there could be ebbs and flows along the way, but not bullish for the dollar long term. So it is, in my opinion, a matter of time before we return down to these levels because everything's cyclical. But, we don't know for sure. It's just one of those things where you can see a move up before, a move down. Like that can definitely happen. So we'll see what we get out of the dollar here in the coming month. Again, May being just such an important month for everything. But if price starts breaking below these levels, you got to start looking for like 96 on the dollar, which would be great for Bitcoin. That's where you'd say, okay, what would I need to see out of these things that could push Bitcoin higher? It'd be the dollar breaking down, in my opinion. I don't see Bitcoin reaching, 48,000 or whatever the target is for a lot of these guys, the gold pocket, without the dollar moving back into this range and moving into these levels. So that's how I would correlation trade it, just on the high time frame. If it's going to make that move at all. So that is it. That's the elementary presentation for the kids.
That's wild, dude. I mean, that's wild. They can go either way, but with the dollar going down like that, obviously should look somewhat bullish for Bitcoin.
For the Bitcoin bulls out there, because I'm a bear. I'm a bear in the bear market, which is appropriate, right? I get so much flack about being a bear, but you're supposed to be a bear in the bear market, okay? You're a bull in the bull market, but that's a whole nother conversation. My thing is, if you guys think that Bitcoin should be going up because of all the banking crisis and all this and that, what's going on, then it should be making newer highs, local highs right now. If that is the catalyst behind moving up, we should already see that. We've just had the second largest bank fail in history, and Bitcoin did not take out a new high. So for me, that is evident that we can't use that barometer or that metric to determine whether or not Bitcoin goes higher or not.
But since the banking crisis started, Bitcoin has made practically almost 100% returns from its all-time low of 15. So
I don't think that was because of
aggressively.
I don't think that was because of the banking crisis. I don't think the banking crisis started in January. What I think was new institutional money was coming in, and it's evident in Coinbase's earnings report. They saw a huge influx in institutional money, and that's all that was. They were just reallocating after a new quarter, putting money into crypto, and that's what to me made the markets move higher.
Or do they know something was going up with the banks, right? Because this bank
Right.
stuff doesn't just come out of...
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, it doesn't just come out of like left field and everybody just caught with their pants down like, oh, I didn't know this was happening. They know quite well the practices that happen in the banking system. So somebody's got to be making a smart move and say, well, before this starts taking off, let's start allocating some money over here. That's what I think. What do you think, Bill?
I mean, when it comes to bank failures, you got to remember 2008, started in December of 2007 with an obscure bank in Asia writing down its whole mortgage-backed security book to zero. That didn't actually end until Bernanke started doing QE in March of 2009. So, you know, Blood's right. If this was peak crisis, it doesn't bode well for Bitcoin. My argument, based on any other major crisis, because this is like intertwined now, currency integrity, debt ceiling, dollar, you know, banks, you know, this is, everybody knows this is much bigger. Dalio bet a year ago on massive corporate bankruptcies, and anybody at the institutional level know Powell had to tighten too far, too fast for something not to blow up. Now, when you talk about like what could make Bitcoin go up, the Secretary of the Energy is basically the smartest person I know in markets, DC. You know, a Secretary of the Energy just said oil purchases to replenish the strategic oil reserve. Remember the administration trying to keep gas prices down? Yeah, they're actually going to start buying in June, just in time for everybody's summer vacation. And that's when they're going to flip the switch and get this. We hope we'll be able to buy enough oil. Hopefully. Jeez. Okay, so remember, you know, old school economics, normally it's commodities up, dollar down. So this is a monthly chart of the dollar index and the CRB commodity index in blue. So the candlestick chart is the dollar down. The blue chart is commodities up. Okay. Then over here, you know, you kind of have commodities down with the dollar bid. But over here, you've got a little bit of oxymoron going on, right? The dollar went up and commodities went up at the same time, mainly because of war. But I mean, what happens if oil goes back to 120 because we got to buy, you know, I don't know, an entire planet's worth of oil, and no one wants to sell it. No one wants to sell us oil. The Russians are out of the market. So where are we going to get all this oil from? So you could have commodities up, right? And you've got the obvious case for dollar lower. I'm a massive dollar hater, right? The dollar has gone down 40 or 50% in its history multiple times, and there's no reason why that can't happen again. So that's the propellant for Bitcoin. And again, this energy announcement, which, you know, basically I think hit the tape about 15 minutes ago, this blue line for commodities, Jesus, it could go a lot higher, and this dollar could go a lot lower. And Bitcoin and crypto, they're digital commodities, right? So if everybody wants out of the dollar, they're going into hard assets, and Bitcoin is hard money. Is that a stretch? Maybe, but rising commodities is just another thing that makes a dollar go lower, as if there aren't enough reasons.
Dude, dropping some bombs. Dropping the heat on that. I mean, just like Trump said on CNN, he said, "Drill, baby, drill." That's his plan if he gets reelected, to bring the prices down.
Right, and I mean, if the administration is going to drive
from
up
our strategic reserve, I thought that was a great strategy.
Right, and buy it all back in the summer. I mean, what is he trying to get? $8 gas? I mean,
Bill, you know what you should do? You should seek out a partnership with Blue Chew, rock hard assets, buy Bitcoin.
Absolutely, man. I mean,
oh man,
I don't know how somebody, you know, I want to run for president. You know, I don't know.
There was a question from John Connor. He wants to know the last time we bought a HODL position. I'll address that because I saw that, and there's, you know, always chatter. And John's in here all the time. I see him in all the streams. He talks shit on TA, but then he's in all the streams. So gotta love the guy. The last thing I bought HODL position wise, when you say HODL, you mean like I'm not selling it? Most people know that I'm diversified, but I'm pretty heavy into Bitcoin. So 16.6 was the last time I bought and exposed myself long with any kind of leverage as well to Bitcoin. I have not purchased since. I've bought some altcoin plays. I've traded XRP. I know that's your baby. I've sold that thing a couple times above 50 cents now. So, but I'll buy it again when it's cheap.
Pimping your baby, John Connor.
Hey, I'm just using it. I'm using it to make money. Am I treating it as a HODL? You know, just like I bought Algorand near the low, bought DOT at like 430 something. I take profits on all these things and I rotate the capital back in. I don't really necessarily view altcoins as good HODL assets right now. They just don't have that quality about them. But if you want to hold them for a medium time or swing trade, they can be very, very lucrative. It's really, I don't think it's wise to hodl the altcoins because to me, those look like startup companies that don't have regulation yet. And so the risk reward is very high, but that's because the risk is also really high. So, do with that what you will. That's how I look at it. So I'm buying Bitcoin, Ethereum predominantly if I'm looking for hodl positions. And I've even been on record in the last like 6 to 8 months is talking about Litecoin when it was down in like $50 range, saying, that one actually has a little bit more promise than some of these other altcoins potentially, just because of the fundamentals of it no longer being a company. Nobody can regulate that company anymore.
I think Litecoin's a sleeper, bro.
That's a good thing.
Definitely a sleeper.
Litecoin's a sleeper, and here's why. The Bitcoin ordinals have come to Litecoin, and ordinals have congested Bitcoin network, but they won't congest the Litecoin network. And Litecoin has Mimblewimble, which has privacy on top of that. Coin's a sleeper for this next run, bro.
We'll see.
Retailers are going to accept crypto at Christmas. I know I said that 3 years in a row, so the broken clock will eventually be right, but I just can't believe that they won't accept crypto at Christmas as a way to draw people into the stores.
Yeah, but look at PayPal. PayPal came out just recently saying that they're holding a ton of Bitcoin, right? And that opens up to merchants accepting Bitcoin, right? People pay with PayPal on online merchants and this and that.
Crypto is not ready to be accepted at major retailers. Think about it. Yeah. Infrastructurally, they're just like, if we start accepting any coin on the Ethereum network, done. It's going to be $100 and something transaction fees. It's going to take forever for it to clear.
Start accepting Matic.
Okay, I mean, you can do Matic. That's fine. But, now you're talking about a very smaller subset of the already small subset of people that deal with crypto.
I'm still short on Matic.
So
what was that?
I'm still holding my $1.55 short on Matic. I haven't closed that thing. It's still open.
Damn.
I'm with Magic though on like the altcoins being highly, highly speculative. I mean, I've been through, it's been 6 bull or bear markets, 5, 6 bear markets in the crypto space now. And I was buying in altcoin season 1. And let me tell you, every coin except Dogecoin and Litecoin are here. And I had a whole bunch of coins, altcoins from that season. So like you said, more risk, of course, more reward. But I bought Bitcoin at 21,000. That was my last purchase on Bitcoin. That was 21,000, but that was on our way down to 16. So don't think I'm like saying I bought it and I bought the low or something, but I did buy it at 21. We then went to 16 and some change, and we've come back up. So I bought some other coins last week, numbers and some other odd ends, Doge. So I buy HODLs all the time, but yeah, I think we had lower though. Still,
we'll see. We will see, and we'll be here again on Monday for another Around the Charts. Right, our streams have now, for the people watching that did not know, we changed up our structure of our show. Now we're streaming only Monday. TA panels, and the rest of the week we are doing market updates, all uploaded content. So our live streams are only Mondays and Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you hit that like, make sure you hit that subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. Stop lurking in the dark. A lot of people watch the channel and are not subscribed. And make sure you go down to the description, go follow these guys on their respective YouTube channels. They're posting out tons of content every single day. Don't just wait for Thursday to come watch them here. Go watch them on their channel as well. Smash the like for them as well. And guys, like always, question everything, trust nothing. And until next time, HODL like it's hot. See you guys.